Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a very misty and murky Adria International Raceway, which is in the Ravelli region of Italy, just north of Venice. It is the first practice session of the weekend for a very special weekend in TCR circles, especially here in Europe. This is the TCR European Trophy. This is where some of the best drivers from around Europe and indeed TCR around the world have come to compete and see who can claim a very special title. It's a bit of an end-of-season prize here this weekend. The air temperature is only a very chilly 6 degrees, track temperature only a little bit warmer, 10 degrees, and 93% humidity. So usually high humidity means there's going to be a bit of rain, but as we had similar conditions yesterday for testing, we shouldn't see too much, I don't think. And by the time we got to the afternoon sessions of testing, it was a little bit better in terms of sunshine, clear skies, and much better here. So this is the TCR European Trophy. My name is Scott Woodwis. Great to have you along here with us this weekend. If you're watching around the world, wherever you may be, either good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time zone. If you want to follow along with everything that's happening, of course, you can watch via the YouTube channel, TCR TV, or you can also head to the website for more information as well, which is europe.tcr-series.com. And look at some of the drivers involved. Here has to be one of the favourites for victory this weekend. The maestro of touring cars, Mr. Gabriele Tarquini. He is here in the Hyundai i30 TN TCR, fresh from its first ever success in TCR circles in the Zhejiang International Round in China for the International Series. And he'll be looking to try and build on that. So here's the entry list for this weekend. Some key drivers to watch out for. Kevin Giacomo, a late entry in the Opel. Also, we're going to watch for Luca Enxler in the Volkswagen Golf. We've got the TCR Iberico champion, Francisco Abreu, I should apologise. We've also got two Altoes in the mix as well. We've got the youngster Giacomo Altoe, driving for Target Competition, and his father, Giovanni Altoe, who is the circuit owner here. He's taking to one of his TCR Golfs in the mix as well. And also, don't count out the now two-time TCR Germany champion and TCR Middle East champion, the Brit Josh Files, in the second of the two Target Competition cars. So as the cars lining up in the pit lane here to get underway, let's just explain the format of the weekend a little bit here. We have two 30-minute practice sessions here this morning. This is free practice 1. Then later on this afternoon, we will have a 2-part qualifying session, which will determine the grid for race 1. And then it will be two 25 minutes plus one lap races that will determine who gets the points. Now, what's happening this weekend is we have drivers and teams trophies to contest for. So what will happen is in qualifying, there will be points awarded to the first 5 drivers as we look at Luca Enxler, one of the drivers expected to earn points over the weekend, big points over the weekend in terms of good results. And they will get 5 points for qualifying on pole position, 4 for second, 3rd for third, and then 4th and 5th. Now here's the driver standings. You might be wondering, why are there drivers that have already scored points? Well, as part of TCR Europe, you score up to 5 points if you've actually raced in up to 5 eligible TCR events. So there's drivers here that have done that, and this is the list of them, of course, including Francisco Abreu, Antti Buri, and then the only one that's only scored 4 is Luigi Ferrara in the Alfa Romeo Giulietta. So as we come into the weekend, it should be intriguing to see who can try and build on that, but of course the drivers that have 5 points or less are the ones that have the advantage. There is Luigi Ferrara, and he's in the Alfa Romeo. Of course, he set a pretty good time in the final test session yesterday, so he could be a dark horse for potentially getting a couple of good results this weekend. There's a lot of Italian drivers in the mix as well. We've got about 4 or 5 local drivers in the mix in either an Audi or a Seat. But we're getting set for the practice session, which is about to get underway in just under a minute's time. So the teams also to watch out for. You have to say that the two Liqui Enxler Volkswagen Golfs, which are Luca Enxler and also the Swiss driver Florian Thomas, and they will be up in the mix as well as the 2 Target Competition Honda Civics. And it's the first time that Josh Files and Giacomo Altoe will have teamed up together. And if anyone that knows TCR will know that Giacomo Altoe, a very talented young driver, he's coming up through the ranks. And we'll get to see exactly what he can do at the wheel of this Honda. It'll be the 5th different TCR car he's actually driven, because he has already sampled the Alfa Romeo, he's also sampled the Subaru, and also as well, I believe it's the Audi, and there's another one I forgot, and the Volkswagen Golf. He's been racing with West Coast Racing alongside Gianni Morbidelli. So this is the 5th different car. And speaking to him yesterday in testing, he said he's still getting used to that car a little bit, but he seems to like it. And of course, he's got a very experienced teammate in Josh Files, of course, as we said, the 2-time German TCR champion. And as the green flag flies here at Adria International Raceway, the first practice session of the weekend for the TCR Europe Trophy gets underway. There's Gabriele Tarquini looking to get underway in his Hyundai Motorsport car. And it's good to see Hyundai, and new manufacturers always coming in all the time, but Hyundai in particular really have come into TCR with a bang. Of course, they announced themselves pretty much at Zhejiang at the international round. Gabriele Tarquini taking a win on the car's debut. As we see the cars head out for the 30-minute practice session. And there are actually 3 cars, 2 of which are in transit over to Dubai for the international series, where Tarquini and a certain Mr. Alain Menu will contest the final couple of rounds of that series. But that's a couple of weeks' time. This is this weekend. And, of course, concentrating on the cars as they head out to a very chilly and very murky-looking Adria International Raceway. It's not a very long circuit, 1.6 miles, or 2.7 kilometres, if that's your particular system of measurement. And as we said, it's a permanent road course, roughly in the Veneto region of northern Italy, about an hour's drive north of Venice. As we look at Francisco Abreu, and Francisco is the TCR Iberian champion, or he's been top in both the Iberian and the Portuguese championships. So he's choosing to wait a little bit before he heads out onto track. And here is the man who owns that track, and that is Giacomo Altoe. So he seems to know this circuit all too often and all too well, of course, because it is his. And he's decided to come and have a play in one of his TCR International Golfs, and getting a little bit oversteery, trying to get some heat into the tyres. And sometimes it's a little bit trickier when you have to throw the car from side to side to get the heat into the tyres and brakes on what is a very cold track, only 10 degrees. So grip levels are going to be a little bit sort of squirrely, a little bit sort of squirmy once we get underway. But once we do, hopefully the tyres should get up to temperature. And in some ways, a cold track does help with tyres, because, of course, it helps regulate the temperatures a little bit better. And usually, warm tyres on a cold track provides the best amount of grip. So the car's now heading down the pit straight to start their first flying laps of the weekend. Looks to me as if Luigi Ferrara is one of the first few cars on track. And practice really is just a chance to dial in the setup, to build on what they've worked on so far yesterday in testing. As Luigi Ferrara comes past one of our 2 Russian drivers in the field, that being one of the Innocenti AMG Motorsport Seat Leon TCR DSGs, and that's Denis Grigoriev. He and his teammate Lev Tokalchev will be wanting to make a good impression. Here's another one of the local drivers, and that is Daniele Capellari, number 76, and he'll be hoping for a good result on one of his home circuits. Just to explain drivers that are eligible for this weekend, they have to have competed in at least one TCR event during this season. But any drivers which, as of the 30th of September, finished in the top 10 positions, or were in the top 10 positions of the International Series point standings, they are not allowed. So unfortunately, you won't see the likes of Stefano Camini in the mix, or Roberto Colciaga, because they are simply, in some cases, not eligible for this series. So you get to see a few drivers that you may not have normally seen around sort of the higher circles of TCR, like International or Italy or Germany, get a chance to basically go for glory and strut their stuff. So the times are coming in. Luigi Ferrara sets the first competitive time of the session, 1 minute 22.348, but we still have, of course, 26.5 minutes to go, so expect that to tumble down. Next car across the line is Giacomo Altoe, and then we have Giovanni Altoe and Sandro Pelati. Other drivers are looking for in the mix as well is going to be the Belgian running with the WRT team, who normally run the Leopard racing cars, or sort of involved in that aspect. That is Maxime Potti from Belgium. And also just saw heading down the pit lane as well is the very talented Finn Antiburi as well. He's been competing for the last 2 seasons in TCR Germany. And he has got 1 win this year, finished 8th in the standings, got a couple more last year when he was at the wheel of a Seat, like car 76 in front of us, which is Capellari. And as we say, the weather should get better and should get warmer. We're expecting higher temperatures of about 18 to 19 degrees, a maximum of roughly 20 to 21 when we get to race day tomorrow. And Josh Files has not yet headed out of the pits, but I'm sure he'll be waiting for the right moment. And Josh, of course, switched to TCR after several seasons competing both in the UK and in Europe in Clio Cup. Decided he wanted to go forward into touring car racing, and this was the better option for him. So he's basically relished that, and of course coming in last year into TCR Germany, took a superb first title, and then had to fight tooth and nail to get the second. And of course, at the beginning of the year, he also became the Middle Eastern champion. And I do believe his next option is going to be in the mix as well. I do believe that should be, I believe, Stefano Camini, which is one of the leading drivers in the mix for the championship in TCR International. And he drives one of these, one of the Audi RS3s. Antti Burri at the wheel. Antti, before he came into TCR, he was someone who raced in Formula Fords for quite a long time. He was a former Formula Ford Festival winner. And of course, he has been racing in Porsches too, so it's good to see him in competitive touring cars. And here's somebody who could also surprise. This is Ollie Kangas, number 4, in the bright yellow LMS Racing Seat Leon. Now, he has recently tasted success with Antti Burri because both of them took a victory in their class in the 12 Hours of Spa competition, which just proves how diverse these cars are for TCRs. We see Giacomo Altoe still now at the top of the times, 1:21.152, almost 1.2 seconds clear of second place Luigi Ferrara. Kevin Giacon, who is in the Seoul Opel Astra TCR, is also up there in the times, third quickest on a 1:24.141. But of course, these guys will just be simply building on the setup work they did yesterday. And there was a couple of drivers that were pushing on a little bit, and Giacomo, of course, using this weekend to get used to the Honda. I believe it's his first weekend with target competition, first time alongside Josh Files as a teammate, so anything he can learn from Josh, having driven the Honda for the past 2 seasons, is certainly going to be invaluable to Giacomo. As we say, anyone who's got a good chance of actually telling us what all the different cars are like is certainly Giacomo, because he has driven 5 of them, as we mentioned earlier. There's his father and circuit owner, driving one of the cars advertising the brand new TCR Academy, which is based here in Adria. So that'll give drivers a chance, if they want to just experience or learn how to develop their skills behind the wheel of a TCR car, a chance to do so either for sprint or endurance racing. And that's the great thing about TCR, because the platform allows for a lot of diversity in terms of being able to take one car and put it into several series. So you can run it in sprint racing and run it in international and European and TCR events around the world. But if you want to then take it endurance racing in several other different championships where the TCR class is permitted, then you can do so with very little to no modifications at all. And that makes this car so cost effective, and why TCR is becoming so much more prominent in touring car circles. Across the line it goes. Giacomo Altoe improves his fastest time to a 1:20.339, but Luigi Ferrara, with a purple first sector, has now gone to P2 once again and closed the gap down to almost 7/10 of a second. There is Gabriele Tarquini. Hasn't set a competitive lap time just yet, but I suspect some of these drivers will have just been out for one run around in terms of an installation lap before they go and set some proper times. Here is Maxime Putti, one of the drivers from the Benelux series. Another very talented driver, as he comes across the line and puts himself third with his first proper flying lap, 1:21.672. And he manages to go a little bit ahead of Kevin Giacon, who crosses the line and does improve his time, 1:22.681, but he stays in P4. So Maxime behind the wheel of the WRT prepared Volkswagen Golf. And just to look at some of the bits and pieces that Maxime has done as we look at Antti Burri in the pits after his first competitive run out on track. Maxime, one of the very talented young drivers out there, as we now look back to Giacomo Altoe. And Giacomo continuing to enjoy himself out there. Purple first sector on his last lap, but he couldn't quite match the pace in sectors 2 and 3, so he's having to go for another crack at it. So far, top 10 in times is Altoe, or Giacomo Altoe, from Luigi Ferrara, Maxime Putti, Kevin Giacon and Lev Tolkachev, with Capellari, Grigoriev, Dionisio, Giovanni Altoe and Sandro Pelati rounding out your top 10. Drivers that have yet to set a proper lap time at the moment include Luca Enxler, Antti Burri, and also as well Josh Files and Gabriele Tarquini. But as we said, this is only free practice 1. They're going to be using this to honing setups, to kind of get a feel for the tyres, how the car sits, and some drivers who may have not driven one of these cars for a while or driven a particular TCR car, it's a good chance for them to get some key mileage ahead of qualifying this afternoon and the race tomorrow, because of course the quicker you can try and dial in the setup, the better chance you've got of scoring a better result, of course. So despite how it looks, it's dry out there, a little bit chilly, as Ollie Kangas goes to P5 in the times with a 1:22.489. And fastest man in the session so far, Giacomo Altoe, heads into the pit lane with under 20 minutes to go in this first session of the weekend. So Altoe stops in his box and he'll park next to Josh Files. And the regular checks will go on. Giacomo will give some feedback on how the car's feeling, and they'll go to check some tyre pressures, maybe make 1 or 2 suspension setting tweaks, see what he's happy with. Right, now we've got a couple of drivers who are making some moves, including Giacomo's father, Giovanni, because he has actually gone to 4th quickest in the times, 1:21.763. So good to see that Giovanni can run with the best of them in terms of even his own son. A couple of movers also in the times. We've just seen this man, Aurélien Comte, who in the Peugeot 308 Racing Cup has gone to 6th quickest, 1:22.346. He's just a fraction over 2 seconds off the fastest time. But Aurélien Comte, and I spoke too soon, because up at turn 2, does very well to catch the slide. And in a front-wheel drive car, you simply just counter steer, put your foot to the floor, and the front end will eventually come around. But that will have wrecked his set of tyres on his first flying lap. Let's get the replay. Just turned it a bit too much, and the rear just broke away under braking, possibly because when you brake, of course, all the load goes to the front of the car, so the rear becomes very light. And because of that, that will need a suspension tweak or two. So there is one of the Hyundai Motorsport customer racing engineers. I was talking to one of the personnel from Hyundai Motorsport yesterday, and they were talking about the fact that that car, it appeals to them in terms of the customer racing aspect of TCR, and of course they want to this is their first proper touring car. And they have had some of the rally mechanics and rally engineers give them some advice on what parts to use in terms of reliability and how to make the car run longer at a certain amount of performance. So certainly taking a lot of advice, and a lot of experienced people in that team who have been better voiced in other touring car circles. And they're going to look to try and build on their success that they've already had this year. As we saw another replay of Aurélien Comte giving us some entertaining antics on track. But as I was saying, with Hyundai, they're looking to try and make an immediate impact. And they certainly have done when Gabriele Tarquini put the car on the top step of the podium back in China. As we see in the pit lane, this is one of our Russian contenders from the Russian Championship. This is Denis Grigoriev, car number 77. And in terms of what he's done so far, he has someone who stepped up from the super production class of the Russian Circuit Racing Series as the young German Luca Engstler heads into pit lane. And Grigoriev has actually taken 1 victory this year, finished 10th in the TCR Russian standings. So there are some prominent drivers out here who can win races, but of course when you put the best of the best amongst each other, it then becomes infinitely harder to try and pick out the star drivers. But so far, as we said, coming up to halfway through practice 1, it is Giacomo Altoe who heads the times, 1:20.339 from Maxime Putti and Francisco Abreu. And now jumping up onto the timesheet, setting immediately the fastest sector 1 is Gabriele Tarquini, as many probably would have expected. Antti Buri, we're looking at now, is currently 7th in times. And here's someone that the likes of Josh Files will know very well, and Luca Engstler, as Giovanni Altoe heads into pit lane. I think the time we have to watch is Gabriele Tarquini's in P6, because of course he is trying to put himself to the top of the times. We still haven't had a competitive lap yet from Josh Files. Whether or not he's waiting for the circuit to get a little bit more rubbered in, a little more warmer, so that he can get out there and run a couple of good laps. Of course, the more rubber that goes down on the circuit, the quicker the circuit becomes. Now then, Tarquini should be ending his lap in a moment as we continue to look at Antti Buri. And as predicted, or expected rather, Gabriele Tarquini jumps to the top of the times immediately, 1:20.289, and dupes Giacomo Altoe's fastest time, which is this man right here, by 0.5 of a second. And Burri comes across the line, and there is Gabrielli. I have to say, it's a fantastic looking car, the Hyundai. Very well sorted, and it's very welcome to have another manufacturer in TCR, like Hyundai. There's 8 separate manufacturers here represented this weekend. We were expected to have a Subaru WRX STI this weekend, run by the Italian Top Run Motorsport outfit, but that car sadly was not available and not ready, so Kevin Giacomo stepped in at the last minute with the number 5 Taconodom Opel Astra TCR. So there is your fastest man in practice 1, Gabriele Tarquini, number 30. Now, he will not score points towards the TCR trophy because his car is on a temporary homologation, so effectively it will be almost transparent in the result. So even if he does win the race, he'll get the trophy for it, but he won't get the points that go with it. And the point structure is quite simple. You get 25 points for a win in either race. You get 18 for second place, 15 for third, 12 for fourth place, 10 points for fifth, and then it goes down 8, 7, 6, 4, 2, 1. First down to 10th. Gabriele Tarquini now dips even quicker in the times, dips underneath the 1 minute 20 barrier, 1 minute 19.890. To now go clear by almost 4.5 tenths from Giacomo Altoe. And Francisco Abreu in third place at the moment with Maxime Putti and Antti Burri. And hats off to Giovanni Altoe. He may own the circuit, but he certainly knows how to pedal a race car as well. P6, 1 minute 20.973, and only a second off Gabriele Tarquini. So that's a mega effort. The rest of the top 10 is Aurélien Comte in the Peugeot, Sandro Pilati, who's car number 7 in... Sandro Pilati actually is car 53, in fact. And he is at the wheel of a Volkswagen Golf GTI. And this is another driver to watch out for this weekend. That's car number 54. That is Hermano Dionisio, as he is now out on track. And finally, I can also see that Josh Files has also started to set a couple of sector times, so he is now out on circuit, and no doubt he'll be aiming to go to the top of the times. And the Hyundai mechanics are on the pit wall watching on as the Liqui Engstler team goes to work on their cars. Luca Engstler at the moment has only done an outlap, an installation lap really, not a competitive time from him or Florian Thoma, to be honest. As into the pits comes Tarquini, Burri and Abreu. Lots of talent just in that short traffic jam. Here is Luigi Ferrara in the Alfa Romeo, currently sat in 7th in the times at the moment, 1 minute 20.974, as Comte has gone across the line but hasn't improved his time to P8. Altoe also goes across and stays P2. And Gabriele Tarquini is someone who, of course, is definitely no stranger to touring cars. He's had varying levels of success in the British Touring Car Championship, in Italy, in Germany, in the European Championship, and also at world level as well. So anything this man doesn't know about touring car racing, Gabriele Tarquini, quite frankly, isn't worth knowing. So Luigi Ferrara heading through the final couple of corners. He's still finding the circuit a little bit slippery, a little bit cold, as the rear end twitched towards the end of the lap. That was a bit of a wiggle up on the exit of turn 7, I think, on one of the final few corners. Ferrara's time so far as he came across the line hasn't really improved. He's about 3/10 off on that lap from his personal best and stays 7th. Giacomo Altoe is out there. He set a personal best in sector 2, so he's going to try and close the deficit of 4.5 tenths to that of current fastest man Gabriele Tarquini. As we look at another of our Italian drivers again, Daniele Capellari, car number 76. And there is Giovanni Altoe's car, and Capellari has done quite a lot in the mix. He's done the Formula Chrono Series. He's raced historically in the Fiat in a Fiat X19, and then he's raced in the Coppa Italia for a couple of times before taking to TCR last year, where he finished 5th in the championship at the wheel of a Seat. This year, not so much luck. He's been down in 16th in the standings, so he'll have some work his work cut out on that side. Giacomo Altoe back out as we head towards the last 10 minutes of the session. He did improve on that last lap. He's gone now to a 1 minute 20.239 to go second quickest, or remain second quickest. heads out of the Tornantino hairpin. As we said, the Adria circuit, a little bumpy, but it's mostly flat in elevation changes. It's very tricky chicane here, where you have to launch it over the curves right and left. And then through Quadra Uno and Quadra Due. And then to the Dogado section of the circuit. So Giacomo's sector's fine so far. He's done a purple in sector 2 and personal best in sector 1. So fastest second sector of anyone so far. He'll come to the last couple of corners now to try and depose Gabriele Tarquini if he can. Across the line comes the young Italian, and he sets a 1:20.003, so he is getting closer. He's only just over 1/10 of a second away from the fastest time of the session, with less than 10 minutes to go, so there is a good chance that he could get a bit closer. And he lost it in the final few corners in the third sector. Antti Buri is now on a new flying lap. And also we've got Maxime Putti, who's also setting a good time. He's put a personal best in sector 1, but can't quite match the pace of Tarquini in sector 2. He's about 2.5 tenths off Gabriele's sector time. Meanwhile, for Josh Files, he has now gone straight to third quickest. I was watching his times at the bottom of the screen and immediately gets deposed by Maxime Putti with a fastest final sector of anyone, and that is about 0.5 tenth quicker at least than Tarquini. Now, Altoe is also flying out there again, another fastest second sector of the weekend from Altoe. So he could be one to get even closer. He was, again, about 1/10 up on Tarquini's ultimate fastest time, by the looks of things. So he will want to try and get himself closer. Here is Giacomo as he heads up towards the timing line, and he goes fastest. 1:19.851 for Altoe, and he is now just 0.04 of a second ahead of Tarquini's time. So for a youngster like Giacomo, good get from him as Antti Buri locks up into turn 1. And that may have possibly spoiled his lap a little bit. Josh Files has also popped up as well to 4th in the times as we've seen. And he was a little bit slow on that first lap because he was backing off a little bit. We saw him just pull off to the right-hand side to allow Antti Buri through. Here is Sandro Pilati in the number 53 Golf. One of a handful of Volkswagens in the mix. And of course, it's good to see the local drivers from the Italian Championship beginning to put themselves against the best that Europe can offer that are eligible to race. Kevin Giacomo moved up to P10 in the times. Maxime Putti also improves to 3rd, but a little bit squirrely under brakes. The rear end just trying to break away on the WRT Volkswagen, but Maxime was having none of it. And as Putti goes on to another lap here with just under 7 minutes to go in this first practice session. It's good to see Maxime's been one of the front-running drivers and one of the main contenders, and also another key young talent that resides in the TCR Benelux series. As for Josh Files, he feels as though that the car still needs a little bit more work, but he was on the pace yesterday, and this is actually a slightly different car that he's actually been driving in Germany. This is a different machine than the one he's been driving for the past 2 seasons. So it's still a Honda, but of course it's not exactly his Honda. It's one of Target Competition's other cars that they have, so he's been getting himself dialed into that with the new tyres. Seems to be pretty comfortable with it for the most part. And of course he's aiming to cap off what's been a superb year with the TCR Europe Trophy. But I know there's 19 other drivers out there that will certainly have something to say about that. Here is one of our Russian drivers. This is Denis Grigoriev. And Grigoriev is currently sat in 13th place in the times at the moment. He's some 2.5 seconds off the ultimate fastest time set by Giacomo Altoe. Now then, you can't miss this car on circuit because this is the Decornodom Opel Astra TCR of number 5, Kevin Giacomo. And Kevin is certainly someone who is quite prominent in TCR Italy circles. He's had a pretty decent campaign this year. As he heads down to the end of the first sector. Nice and clean through the end of the lap and that sector, and now as he comes up towards to break the timing beam, there is Josh Files. Sorry, Giacomo Altoe, my apologies, trying to get these helmets identified. It's sometimes a little bit tricky, but it does clearly say Giacomo Altoe on the side, so my apologies. But Kevin Giacomo, he was the third in the TCR Championship this year with 2 victories. And also he's been a front runner in the Italian Touring Car Championship, and also he's raced in the Coppa Italia in the 2nd division. So someone who has only been really racing the past couple of years, but it's great to see him up in the National Championship in Italy for TCR and growing in prominence. And he has a 1 minute 21.767 to improve on, but he does sit at the bottom of the top 10. Across the line comes Giacomo. Can't improve his best time. That was a 1:22.4 last time around, so a little bit off the pace. As both Tarquini and Putti also head out for the last 4 minutes of the session to try and improve. And this will be the point of the session where the circuit will be the most rubbered in, as Tarquini moves out of the way for Giacomo on another flying lap. And we'll have to see what he can pull out. Looking at some of the times on my screen as we head through the list. Ollie Kangas is on a personal best in Sector 1 in 12th place. And here is Ollie, number 4. Again, bright yellow car. One of the 2 Finns in the field, the other one being Antti Buri, and the 2 of them shared a car, as I mentioned earlier, at the Spa 12 Hours. In fact, it was a Seat Leon, of course, when Antti has been campaigning in the Audi this year. And Kangas does not improve his time. He was about 3/10 off his best on that lap with a 1:22, but of course personal best in the first sector will certainly give him a little bit of confidence. So quickly reel off the top 10 with just under 3.5 minutes to go in this first practice session of the weekend of the TCR Europe Trophy. So Giacomo Altoe currently tops the times, 1 minute 19.851, just 0.04 of a second ahead of Gabriele Tarquini. Maxime Putti is 3rd ahead of Josh Files, with Francisco Abreu in 5th place, the Portuguese driver. Then Antti Buri, Giacomo Altoe, Luigi Ferrara, Aurelien Comte and Kevin Giacomo. There's Luca Engstler there, maybe wondering why he's not out on track. So whether it's any issues with the cars, we're not 100%, as Kevin Giacomo abandons his run and heads back into pit lane. Possibly that will be the end of his session, and potentially also for Gabriele Tarquini as well, because he's come straight back into the pits. So I suspect that was purely just a installation run at the end of a lap to try and gain a little bit more data to see if the car's running okay. Here is Maxime Putti, looking to try and improve on the 3rd quickest. And there's only a handful of cars out on the circuit. We've got Maxime Putti, Antti Buri, Ferrara, Comte and Pilati on circuit. So only 5 cars out there. So anyone that wants to set a quick time now, particularly at the end of the session, when the circuit is relatively quiet, is an opportune time to do it. So drivers like Putti are looking to try and make the most of that. And drivers will do different things in practice sessions. They'll either use the session to just build on the setup, they'll look to try and build their race pace, they'll look to try and build their pace over a single lap. And that was interesting in terms of drivers yesterday in testing were mainly going for race setup, but they said the car felt good over long runs, but they had to carry on sort of building up the confidence and the pace over a single lap. So of course these 2 practice sessions this morning are going to be absolutely vital to get the car set up just the way they want it. As Putti comes across the line, and he's got time for, I think, at least 2 more laps in this session, with under 90 seconds left to go. Out of the first turn and down the back straight towards the kinks of 2 and 3. And checking out his sector time on this run so far. How does that stack up with his previous best? No, he's off his personal best at 32.6, so that's not an ultimately fast time for him. And something maybe concerning for Team Engstler, though. The 2 Liquimoly cars of Florian Thoma and Luca Engstler have not set a competitive lap time this session, so I wonder potentially if there are 1 or 2 issues with that pair of Volkswagen Golfs. The bonnet is up on Florian Thoma's car, so obviously the Liquimoly team are not 100% happy about something as we head to the last 30 seconds of the first practice session. So I think Putti may be just using this run possibly to build a little bit of race pace, because he's not on the ultimate fastest pace. But it might give an indication as to how quick he could be, and he could be a dark horse this weekend. Of course, he's got a very skilled team behind him with that car in terms of WRT. they're no strangers to success. So potentially this could be one that works out for him. Of course, WRT are also the team which behind the Belgian Audi club, Audi R8s that race in GT3 racing. So they've got a lot of experience. As the checker flag comes out on the first practice session of the weekend for the TCR Europe Trophy. The drivers will get the chance to finish their current flying laps. I can't see anyone that's going to improve their times too much as Antti Burri comes across the line. And again, he may just be working on race setup, I think, in these last couple of minutes, because that time he coming across the line was almost 2 seconds off his ultimate fastest time. So with no one else really on a personal best at all, the top 10 in the times looks to be pretty much set. As we see Aurélien Comte, one of the last two drivers across the line, he will come across and end up the session in 9th. And then the last car that was set to come across was Sandro Pilati, but you can see just in the back of shot that he has come into the pit lane. So a very intriguing and very active first practice session here at Adria. And it leaves us with a pair of Italians at the top of the times, which will make the local fans very happy indeed. Giacomo Altoe top, but only by 0.04 of a second from Gabriele Tarquini. And good efforts as well from Maxime Putti, as well as Josh Files. There is Giacomo, just discussing with his team. And also we see Luigi Ferrara is also headed out for a last-minute run as well. These guys might be picking up a little bit of rubber on their in-lap as well. So as the final couple of cars head into pit lane, it should hopefully give us some kind of, possibly some kind of an indication as to what we could expect in qualifying. Of course, we've still got one more session left to go of free practice in a couple of hours' time before the morning is over. But of course, what will be key is that every single team and every single driver will be poring over the data from that session to try and find the extra little tenths and hundredths and thousandths of a second. And you can find that you can find big chunks of time very easily, but it's just finding the little bits that are key. Now, there is also, just to let you know, as you can see on the screen, there is a separate contest for DSG gearboxed cars, and Giovanni Altoe was top of that one from Sandro Pilati and Denis Grigoriev. So there'll be a separate contest for that one. So potentially we could be seeing two Altoes on the top step of each podium, one possibly on the overall podium for Giacomo Altoe, and Giovanni could top the DSG competition. And we'll have to wait and see. So here's the results of practice one then. Giacomo Altoe tops the times, 1:19.851. Gabriele Tarquini only 0.04 of a second away. Then Maxime Putti impressing in the Volkswagen Golf in third. Then Josh Files in fourth from Francisco Abreu, Antti Burri, Giovanni Altoe, who is top DSG car. And then Luigi Ferrara, Aurélien Comte, and Kevin Giaccone. Sandro Pilati 11th quickest from Oli Kangas and Denis Grigoriev. Then it's Lev Torkachev. And then Hermano Dioniso, Daniele Caparari, and then the two cars that didn't really set proper times, the two Liquimoli Engstler Golfs of Florian Thoma and Luca Engstler. They will have work to do ahead of the second practice session. So the cars heading back into this wonderfully covered paddock area here behind the pits for Adria. In fact, actually, it's crazy. They actually have hotel rooms on the top of the pit boxes. So it's quite a novel feature here of this circuit. And of course, it's also a great place to house the in the mix. So great effort in the first practice session. We'll see you later on in a couple of hours for free practice 2, the TCR Europe Trophy at Adria International Raceway. For myself, Scott Woodwist, and everyone here, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in a couple of hours' time. But for now, it's goodbye.